GeoGearHeads.
Well, hello, folks, and welcome to GeoGearHeads. You may notice a little something different tonight, but I think you'll get used to it quickly. Hey, welcome. This is episode 356. We are talking about Earthcaches tonight, and in case you didn't know, I'm going to give you the lowdown right here, give you the deets on what's going on. I sound so young and hip, don't I? GeoGearHeads is a weekly podcast about geocaching and geolocation games all over the world. You know what? We talk about all sorts of geeky and gearhead type things here. And speaking of geeky and gearhead, I have a guest with me tonight. Welcome, Land Monkey.
Hey, I resemble that remark.
I thought you did. I didn't think it was an insult to call you geeky or a gearhead.
Not really. No, I appreciate that. Hey, it is great to be here. I wish I could be here with you and Daryl, but you know, I'll take being here with you.
Okay, good. Daryl is traveling at the moment, but
is this his big trip he's been planning, or that's not yet?
Well, this is one of the trips he's been planning. I mean, this is a work trip that he's on currently. So.
Oh, okay. So this isn't their honeymoon?
No.
Okay.
No. I hope not, because he didn't take his wife along, as far as I know. That really makes an awkward honeymoon.
Renee's on the phone. Daryl, turn around.
You forgot me.
I hate it when that happens. Oh, how embarrassing.
A Home Alone honeymoon edition.
Way funnier to the people watching. All right, so we're talking about earth caching tonight.
We're earth caches. What do you think about earth caches? Well, you don't know about earth caches. You don't like them.
I loves the earth caches.
Yes, you do. But before we get into earth caches, let's talk about something that could affect the earth. We've got some news.
Okay.
China, the entire country, China is launching artificial moons in urban areas. Did you catch that? China is launching artificial moons in urban areas. So when I read that, the first thing I think of is the Death Star.
Mm-hmm. That was the first thing I thought of when I saw this article.
You're heading to that small moon. That's no moon. That's a space station. You want me to continue? I could probably quote most of the movie.
Okay. Well, let's just switch the podcast up. Yeah, please.
Okay.
Just recite Star Wars Episode 1. Or no, that's Episode 4. That's A New Hope.
That's A New Hope, yeah. Which was the first episode out.
That's why I always get
chronologically. I'm old. That's the way I saw them. Anyway, let's get back to the Chinese Death Stars.
Okay. Chinese Death Star. What could go wrong with this description? Okay. You've just been banned in China.
Oh, in one Chinese city, costly streetlights could soon be a thing of the past. By 2020.
That's not far away.
No. That's, I don't have very good sight, and I can't tell the future, so I don't have 20/20 vision. But apparently, Tian Fu, this area science society, does have 20/20 vision. They plan to launch an artificial moon to light up the night sky. If the plan goes through, the so-called illumination satellite would orbit above the Chinese city of Chengdu and light in conjunction with the actual moon, but shines 8 times brighter. The organization says it will launch 3 more satellites by 2022, potentially replacing streetlights in urban areas. The plans were announced by Wu Chengfeng, head of the society, in an innovation conference in Chengdu on October 10th, so just a couple of weeks ago.
Okay. So are you part of the Wu Chengfeng clan?
Ooh. I like that. No.
Okay.
So they're going to use a mirror-like coating to reflect sunlight down to Earth. So these satellites are not actually producing light. They are acting just like the moon and reflecting existing sunlight.
Big ass mirrors.
Yeah, there you go. Just like the Death Star, right? Didn't it have a big concave mirror in it?
Yeah, it did. That's what that was. It's
Uh,
so Darth Vader could find the blackheads.
yeah, exactly. Uh, that's what happened to the Emperor. That was a tanning light that he got a little out of control there. He got over tanned. He became gray.
So back in China, meanwhile, back in China,
Okay, talking about the mirror-like coating, despite shining light in a similar way, the satellite boasts one advantage that the moon doesn't: human control. Chung Fang says that both the location and the brightness of the human-made moon can be changed so that it can be completely shut off if necessary. And since the satellite is mobile, it can assist disaster relief by beaming light on areas that lost power.
so there's a good humanitarian use case embedded in there. But my thought on this, and I know Chris, you had brought up something before the show as well, but my thought is about sort of the geopolitical ramifications of one country having control over how much light there is at night in the world. Um, because I mean, just because they're putting the satellites in a 500-kilometer orbit above a particular part of China doesn't mean that they can't move.
Well, they just said they can move them if necessary. They are mobile, right?
So yeah, so I think that NATO, the UN are probably going to have some things to say about this. But what was your thought? You had another thought on it.
Well, my thought was wildlife. This has to affect wildlife. The first thing I thought of was sea turtles in Florida, right? They hatch at night and they go towards the brightest object in the sky, which happens to be the moon, and that leads them out to the water,
Mm,
right? So, okay, they're probably not the same sort of animals there, but the animals are their days, their cycles are dictated by the sun and the moon. And if you go and add an artificial moon, that could really screw up wildlife.
right, nocturnal animals or
Right.
have their cycles messed up. Maybe who knows? Yeah,
Now, the other thing I thought about was tides. The moon controls the tides.
yeah, but it isn't
However,
that big.
right. However, that's a gravimetrical effect and not uh,
It's not light.
yeah, I was going to say a luminosity, a light effect.
Illuminati. Yeah.
The Illuminati effect. Um, so I don't, it shouldn't affect anything like that. But you've been out on a full moon, right? You can sit in outside and read a book by moonlight. It's that bright.
I just realized this is by 2022. China is going to have the ability to moon the world.
Ooh.
I just thought I would throw that out there. So
And I'm letting it settle.
okay,
Okay, now we move on. That was well played.
thank you.
Well played.
All right.
So,
That's
yeah, I don't know what the ramifications are for having an artificial moon or 3 or 4.
right.
I think it's a great idea. We can, if you need to brighten up an area, you do it. But
It's a cool idea, but I
yeah,
think there are a lot of other ramifications to it that I'm sure others who get paid a lot more to worry about these kind of things than I do are going to have a say on.
wait, do you get paid to worry about these things?
Well, that's
'Cause
why I said get paid more than me.
I'm missing a paycheck here.
Yeah. I get paid zero to worry about
Oh,
things.
whew. Okay, so then my check did clear.
Yes,
Okay.
it did not bounce.
But I got to get a sound effect for that.
But for bouncing or a rim shot,
Oh, maybe a
bad
little
joke rim shot.
boing
You know
boing.
what? If you have a bad joke rim shot on this podcast,
Mhm.
Daryl is never going to have his finger off the button.
Yeah, I know.
You're
Thank you.
constantly going to be getting sound affected.
I'm the punnest one of them all.
You are. Yeah, and Wet Coaster in the chat says the pollution's so bad in a lot of the Chinese cities that you can't see the stars at night anyways. So
So it'll just create this glowing haze over the city.
it could. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, clearly it sounds like this is going to happen, at least the first satellite. So it'll be interesting to see.
Well, and then they control the brightness and turn it to a laser beam, and they can burn right through the pollution.
What could go wrong? Just like
Nothing.
the Death Star.
Yeah, exactly. And
I mean, they were just trying to illuminate Alderaan.
exactly. And they were off a little bit.
Just,
But
Just
Isn't that a
put
great
that switch
sound?
a little too far.
All righty. Land Monkey,
Yes, sir.
rumor has it you like Earth caches.
I love Earth caches, and I'll tell you what. Oh, it sounds like
Can you tell me why you love Earth caches? What draws you to an Earth cache, say over a traditional or a multi or even a puzzle cache?
it's a great question. I think what it is that I like most about them is, first of all, you're almost always guaranteed that you're going somewhere interesting. With a traditional or multi, a puzzle, you're not always guaranteed that where you're going to go is interesting. Um, there's a lot of urban hides that are not terribly fascinating. But with an earth cache, you're almost always guaranteed you're going somewhere interesting. So there's that factor. In addition, I I happen to absolutely love geology. So it was a minor of mine in post-secondary education. So
Minor geology.
there
You
you
get how
go.
that works together, right?
Bump. But I have always been fascinated by the topic. I've always loved it. So when I when I got into geocaching and then eventually learned about the concept of earth caches, I was like, oh, well, this is perfect. So it's an area that I have interest in. Like I said, I know it brings you to interesting places fairly consistently. And I always like learning. I'm a fan of constantly learning and constantly sharing and teaching. So the constant transfer of knowledge is just it excites me. So for all those three reasons is why I love earth caches.
Well, now in the chat, I'm
Mm,
gonna bring this up and maybe you're not prepared, but Wet Coaster wants to know how many Earth caches do you own as a CO,
okay.
as a cache owner, and how many have you logged? And I know the answer to the last one. All of them. You've logged them all.
Well, I actually can answer those questions. I own 8 earth caches um, right now, so it's not a lot, but they're varied over a reasonably large geographic area, and they're not all the same thing. I try and never make two similar earth caches, so there's that. I have found 438. Um,
And I found very similar numbers. I have a 4 and a 3.
there you go.
I'm just one number off from you.
Yeah, you're almost caught up. Good job.
Thank you. I just got to find 8 more and we're caught up.
Yeah. I do have a couple of other earth caches in, I don't know, in the hopper, I guess you'd say. They're in development.
Mhm.
So they might get up to 10 eventually, but I don't rush to put them out. I really enjoy the process and trying to make sure that when they do get out, I learn something. Every time I go through the process of creating an earth cache, I learn a few new things about how to do better in the next one.
I've got a couple of great ideas for earth caches, based on the geology that I've learned about in my area, but I can't quite figure out how to make the observations practical.
Hmm. Well, then you and
So,
I should get together next time I'm down in Tacoma. We'll figure
okay,
I will help you out with that.
you're such a nice guy. I
I
personally own one earth cache, and I was helped very much by Ojoy. You've probably done many of Ojoy's earth caches.
He's amazing. Yeah.
She did all the research and she pulled out books, and photocopied them and or scanned them and sent them to me. And I'm looking at them. I'm reading these books. I understand each word that I'm reading. I can read it, but when you put it all together, it stopped making sense.
It's like any science. Once you really start to roll up your sleeves and get into it, it can be daunting,
Hmm.
which is why, again, I think a really well made earth cache, a really good earth cache, eases you into the science. It makes the science approachable and digestible, and you walk away having learned something, not having been baffled and throwing out, I don't know, 200 meters and gray. Hopefully, you don't delete my log.
Oh, wait, that's most of my answers. Have you
Right.
been reading my logs?
Yeah, that's most of the answers to most earth caches, I think.
You found my earth cache and you gave some terrible answers.
Oh, hold on. Okay, I want to talk about this now. Yes, I did find your Earth cache, and I thought I gave excellent answers. Now, granted, I did give two distinct sets of answers, but I thought you would find them quite interesting.
Let's see if I can come up with this. Keep going on,
Okay.
I
Well,
want to
I'll
see
tell
if
you
I
what.
can
Why don't I
embarrass you.
switch gears and start talking about International Earth Cache Weekend that I'm still taking full credit for, while you're looking up your information you want to find there.
You're still taking credit for that, are you?
I am. So international, I mean, they officially call it International Earth Cache Day, but I don't. I call it International Earth Cache Weekend because we now have 2 days. In the last couple of years, we've had 2 days to find and log Earth caches, and I I personally like to take credit for that because I complained and complained and complained because when I started geocaching, International Earth Cache Day consistently fell on the Sunday of Canadian Thanksgiving. So it's like, come on, you guys. It's like the worst possible time to have to go out and find an Earth cache. So, um, so there you go. And Wet Coaster said, why isn't it a week with both weekends? Because it's not CETO. That's why. I figured I'm gonna walk away happy with getting 2 days out of that deal. But anyways, so that's my story about International Earth Cache Weekend. But hey, let's talk some stats while Chris of the Northwest is looking some stuff
I
up.
have it now.
Oh, you got it? Okay.
Mhm.
Then before I get into the stats, go ahead.
So, just in case you're wanting to know, my Earth cache is GC 6 Kilo Quebec 3 Foxtrot, and it's Fife's Peak. And so Land Monkey submits the answers. So I did this Earth cache, and I'm supposed to send an email or something. I don't know. I was there with Rock Chalk, so that should count for something. The first question is what is the elevation of Fife's Peak? Really tall, like way higher than where we were standing. Why are there vertical columnar formations here? That's because that's where God put them. Building on your last answer, what in your opinion happened to the material surrounding the columns? It fell. It fell. 2 words. He answered 2 words. It fell. Now, I have a fifth one that talks about prominence, and prominence is, difficult to assess sometimes. So I'm making an optional question. In your estimate, how high is the surrounding, or how high above the surrounding lands does the peak rise? A lot higher, he says. So there you go.
There you go. So that is an example of how not to answer an Earth cache. Now, in my defense, and anytime somebody starts a sentence with "in my defense," you know they're already on their back foot. But in my defense, I did also submit the correct answers to that Earth cache.
He submitted answers.
Oh, ouch! And in fact, I was there with Rock Chalk. We were doing that Earth cache together. That was fun.
It had to have counted for something.
Yeah, there you go.
That was coincidental, correct?
Well, we had both. It was semi-coincidental. We had both left the mega event. Which one would that have been?
Tri-Cities, perhaps?
That would have been Tri-Cities. We had both left Tri-Cities the same morning, went kind of different directions, and ended up converging because it turned out we were after the same series of caches. We were both trying to finish the Rainier Geo Tour before it ended that year.
Mm-hmm.
And Laura and I were at a cache, several caches before the Earth cache, and I'm looking around as we're walking back to the car. There's another car pulls up. And I'm like, that looks like Rock Chalk. And so we walk over, and sure enough, it's Chris and Rachel. And so we ended up hanging out with them for a little bit, and then we went and did an actual an Earth cache that's in a cave that you walk through. We did that together as well, which was really fun. That's actually an episode on my YouTube channel, which I have no idea which episode that is off the top of my head, but it's in there.
But watch them all until you find the right one.
Yeah, it's somewhere in the middle. Anyways, yeah, that was a fun time. So anyways, I digress talking about doing Earth caches with Rock Chalk, but don't send those kind of answers for your Earth caches, folks. Just don't do it. It's tempting. If you know the CO and you know that they can take a joke, then do that as well as the proper answers.
There you go.
Which is what
I did receive a DNF on that.
On your Earth cache.
Yes.
How do you DNF an Earth cache?
I don't have the direct
explosion and there's nothing left anymore.
No, No, I don't have the, log in front of me, but it was something like, "I'm on vacation and I don't want to, answer questions in order to find, geocache, so I'm not doing this." I'm
Don't
like,
log in.
You already spent more time logging it than logging that you're not going to do it,
Oh,
than
that's
it would have really taken you to do it.
why do people do this? Oh.
I was I I didn't know what to say. I'm like, "Wow, okay."
Delete. That's what you say. Oh.
No, I think I left it.
Yeah, just to show the rest of the world.
Exactly.
All right. Can we talk stats?
No, I wanna talk okay, go ahead.
All right. So I did a little exercise here out of curiosity, professional curiosity, and I started digging up stats about this year's International Earth Cache Weekend. So I call this section International Earth Cache Weekend by the stats. Um, Pretty self-explanatory. So October 13th and October 14th of this year was International Earth Cache Weekend. During those 2 days, 1,455 Earth caches in Canada were logged by Canadians.
Well, that seems right.
Yeah. So about, just shy of 1,455. During those same 2 days, 1,555 Canadian Earth caches were logged. So that means, if we extrapolate a little bit, 100 Canadian Earth caches were logged by visitors. People who
Mhm.
their home country is not Canada, but they logged a Canadian Earth cache that weekend. So in total, 1,555 Canadian Earth caches were logged. I thought, well, that's interesting. I wonder how many Earth caches were logged in the US. And so I looked into that, and about 4 times as many Earth caches were logged in the US as there were in Canada. There were 6,635 Earth caches logged in the US. I didn't bother figuring out how many were logged by Americans versus other countries. I had just done that for Canada because I'm Canadian. But
There wasn't any large event in the US around that weekend, correct? I mean, I'm thinking there wasn't a GeoCoin Fest, there wasn't a,
not that I'm aware of. I'm sure there were lots of events, but I don't think there was a
mhm.
mega event, at least not one that I'm aware of.
Okay, go
Hey,
ahead.
if the listeners know of that, write in, let us know, correct us. All right. So what I thought at first, what I thought was interesting is just go by the general population. The population of the US is approximately 10 times the population of Canada, yet there is only 4 times as many Earth caches logged. So either there is not a direct population representation of number of geocachers to overall population. Ergo, what I'm saying is more Canadians are geocachers by per capita than Americans are, which I think is probably what the case is there. Or a lot of American geocachers just didn't log an Earth cache on International Earth Cache Weekend, which I think is probably not the case.
Most of the Canadians that I know are geocachers. So, yeah, that I think that fits.
There's no other factor that might go into that
No,
particular. Okay.
no, most of the Canadians I know are geocachers. So, as far as I can tell, it's like 90% of the country
Yeah,
seems to
there you go.
geocache.
That's probably about right. So, further thinking through this a little bit further, of course, I just started with Canada because that's my home country, and then I thought, okay, well, we'll go to our neighbors next door. I looked at the stats in the U.S., and then I thought, okay, if I'm to think about the whole world, what is the country that the whole world recognizes are probably the craziest, most passionate, get out there all the time, over the top geocachers?
Chileans.
That's not the country that came to my mind.
Huh. Okay. Well, okay. Maybe it's Brazil because they have the other ape cache.
It could be,
Okay.
it could be. The country I went with was Germany.
Yeah, I see how you could do that too.
So I thought, all right. So we know that in Canada there was 1,500 approximately Earth caches logged. In the U.S. there was 6,600 Earth caches logged. So I thought, all right. Well, how many were logged in Germany? How many German Earth caches were logged over those 2 days? And it turns out the number is 9,832.
For
One
those
and
playing at home,
a yeah, one and
9832.
9,832, 1.5 times as many as the US and 6 times as many as Canada. So that's crazy, right?
Mhm.
That is a lot. So then I thought, okay, well, let's break it down by population. And again, accepting what I said earlier, that probably there isn't a direct relation of the number of geocachers in a country, like the per capita geocaching hobby in any country. But I thought, let's assume there is. Let's assume every country has the same percentage of the population that are geocachers. So there's my assumption I'm working from. I said, okay, Canada, we have 36.7 million people, somewhere in there. Um, Given the number of Earth caches logged per capita, so I take that number, that 1,500 I had, and I take the population of 36.71 million, and that gives me a per capita Earth cache logging of 0.000, so 30 or 40,000,00424%, or 4.24 to the negative 5.
So that is um 4/10,000th of 1%.
Yes, that is correct. And so then I thought, okay, well, let's take a look at the same stat for the US. How would that roll out? And with an estimated population in the US of 325.7 million people, um, that works out to, again, 4 leading zeros behind the decimal point, 204. So
So 2/10,000ths of 1%.
exactly. So interestingly, by population, half as many as were logged in Canada. And then I thought, okay, well, we have the stats for Germany. What's the population in Germany? The population in Germany, giving the same stats, 82.5 million. And so that works out to 3 leading zeros, 119. So 0.000119.
So 1/1000th of 1%.
Yeah. So that would mean by population, nearly 10 times more German Earth caches were logged than the USA.
Wow.
Those crazy Germans. There you go.
Wow. This is Limax level math. So you've done a good job.
Well, it's not Limax level math, but I appreciate the compliment.
Um so yeah, that's impressive. That by population, Germans have logged 10 times more Earth caches on 2 days. Just 2 days is all you checked.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just focusing on International Earth
Right.
Day because that's the day when, a lot of people log. Granted, a lot of people don't actually visit an Earth cache that they log that day, but
What?
but that's the day that most Earth caches are logged over the period of a year. That was the other thing, is when you take a look at the stats of the entire history of geocaching, how many how many Earth caches have been logged, and it's a pretty flat line. I mean, obviously, right in the beginning of geocaching, nothing, because they didn't exist initially. But from the point in time when they existed, it's a pretty low line, and it's kind of little, little bumpy little line. And then every International Earth Cache Day, there's a spike, and then the
Mhm.
spike gets bigger. and then the last 2 years when we've had the International Earth Weekend with the souvenirs and everything, the spikes like through the roof. So
So I had to drive 37 miles for mine, about 40 miles for
okay.
my Earth cache, which, it's not out of the ordinary. Now, I know you've driven the entire coastline of British Columbia for one Earth cache,
Not
but,
quite, but we did do quite the adventure for an Earth Cache on Earth Cache weekend.
this one was Mima Mounds. Have you heard of these Mima
I've done
Mounds?
Mima Mounds. That is awesome. That is a really cool one.
Um, you know, Going by on the freeway, I was like, "I wonder what that is." And I, came out, I go, I'm gonna go find out." And come to find out, nobody really knows exactly what they are.
Well, at least that's the story in the Earth Cache. So at the time the Earth Cache was created.
No, actually, I did some Googling before I left.
Okay.
Yeah, there is still some scientific question on what the Mima Mounds are.
Whether they're man-made or glacially created or
Right.
what. Yeah.
There's so many ideas, yeah. Anyway, but I've done the Earth caches in my area,
Right.
and now I have to extend the circle. So I went out on a Sunday. My wife and I went out early Sunday morning. Oh, I'll tell you a story if you don't mind.
Yeah. I'll sit back and listen.
Yes, I unfortunately had a car die, so that Sunday was the first weekend of my new car. Let's go driving. Well, new to me. I didn't get a new car because, I can't afford it. Um, and we're out. We drove to the Mima Mounds. This is night. Nobody's around. I mean, not even on the roads going out there. There's nobody around. And we had been driving for almost an hour, and we needed to use the restroom. And surely there's one right there. So I pull right up in front of it. I park oddly because there's no one here. What do I care? We use the restroom. I get back in. I can't turn the key in the car. In fact, it won't go in to the slot, into the ignition.
That's weird.
I can't even. I'm like, what do I do? I can't, I'm looking down there. I don't see anything wrong, but I can't get in there. Like, well, it can't hurt it. So I did what I call the Fonzie hit.
Oh, yeah.
Boom. Key went right in, started right up. I only moved 4 or 5 spots to park, but it's just one of those things like, why did do that? Am I going to be able to start the car when we come back? It hasn't done it since.
Was that at the Mima Mounds when it did
Yes.
that? Ah. Yeah. Well, the Mima Mounds does have strange powers, apparently.
Strange magnetic inflections. So anyway, we walked the Mima Mounds. It was fascinating, to be honest.
Yeah. So, listeners, if you don't know what we're talking about, do you have the GC code?
I sure do. That is GC1 Echo 305.
There you go. So if you're coming up the I-5 from Oregon or over from Olympia or wherever, because I think it's down towards Olympia, right? The Mima
Correct.
Mountain. It's worth stopping in there, checking that out. It's a quite an interesting little spot. That's cool. It's neat that you did one that I've done before.
Yeah. So if you're driving up, it's if you're driving up, it's between Centralia and Tumwater.
There you go. If you're familiar with your Washington geography.
Yeah, exactly. So there you go. Anyway, please. That was my story. And it's just one of those things. I'll always remember the panic of, I can't get my car to go. What do I do now?
Yeah, that would be a panic. Was there anything else in the parking lot, or
no? And we went and walked. We walked I think it was only a half-mile circle.
Yeah, it's not a huge.
No. And it was very nice. It was chilly. It was significantly colder there than it was at the house when we left, by nearly 20 degrees.
Well, you live up in the tropics of Tacoma.
Exactly. Where we have an artificial sun that heats the ground all day.
There you go.
But yeah, so we walked there, and now when we left, there was father and a couple of children, and he unloaded bicycles, so they were going to ride the trails, which makes a lot of sense because it was a very nice paved, relatively flat trail that would have been great for the kids to ride.
Very cool.
Okay, there you go.
Did you want to hear a story about our?
I would love to. Does it involve a Fonzie hit?
It does not involve a Fonzie hit.
Oh man. Okay.
But
you know what? I'll listen to it anyway.
Lost hikers.
Ooh.
Yeah. That was interesting. So we went out to a not often used trail that has an earth cache on it, as well as one traditional. It's it's about a 10-kilometer bike ride to the earth cache from the trailhead. And it's the first section of it is actually quite an undulating road. And then it turns into a piece of, and all of this is actually part of the Trans-Canada Trail. And then it turns into, once you get up to a certain elevation, it turns into an old railway. So it's a rails to trails rail bed scenario. And so we got on our bikes. So this is on Highway 5 outside of Hope. We're about 20 kilometers outside of Hope, British Columbia, for those familiar with that area, on the Coquihalla Highway. And it's just one of the little turnoffs off the Coquihalla Highway that you would normally just go whipping past at 120 kilometers and not even realize it's there. But we pulled off at that one, got on the trailhead, took our bikes, rode up, and actually spotted some other interesting geology on the way to the earth cache. And I'll get to that in a moment. But we got to the earth cache. It's called Hole in the Wall, and I'll look up the GC code while we're talking. But
all in all,
it's just another hole in the wall.
Yeah.
Here we go. It's GC20 Charlie Quebec Alpha. And it's a pretty cool earth cache. And it's one of those ones where it's like, is this man-made? Is this naturally occurring? And that's sort of part of the earth cache as well, is kind of how did this happen? But it's neat. It's a fascinating piece of geology. If you take a look at that, if you look that one up, basically you're looking at a rock wall, and there is a waterfall that effectively comes out of the rock wall and then back into the rock wall in a very large opening, a hole in the wall. So it's quite fascinating. So we enjoyed that. We had a really great time going out there. So the Lost Hikers bit, we were riding our bikes, and when we got to when we when we got to the trailhead, that's what I say, parking coordinates trailhead. We're about to start our adventure. There was another vehicle there, so I thought, oh, there's somebody else out on the trail somewhere. Great. And we hop on our bikes and we start going about a kilometer into the trail. We come across this elderly gentleman, and he's walking. He's got, he looks fairly well equipped for a day hike, but we stopped and just checked on him. Hey, how you doing? And he seemed very confused. And that was like an alarm bell for me. Like, oh my goodness, is this like someone who has either been separated from his friends, or worse, like, is this someone who really needs care and is not where he's getting care from? And, we call those silver alerts in Canada. I don't know if you have
Mhm.
those in the US. It's
We have
like an
Amber
Amber
Alerts.
Alert.
Yes, I think it's a silver alert. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I'm quite concerned. So we're asking this guy some questions. I'm trying to, is this guy lucid? Trying to, get what's going on. And it turns out, yeah, he is. He's just lost from his friends. So he apparently has two other friends he's hiking with, and he's trying to get back to the car. I'm like, okay, well, I said, you're a kilometer away from the parking and where you started. Um, I said, we haven't come across anybody else on the trails. So I don't know where the rest of your friends are, but you're probably best to get to your car and wait for them there. And so he seemed to be taking our advice. And once we felt that he was okay, we continued on. About 2 kilometers later, 2 kilometers later, we come across another hiker who is standing out on a bluff with a whistle, blowing his whistle. And we're like, "Are you looking for another hiker?" And he said, "Yes. Um, I have two friends that I was hiking with, and I can't find them." So we're like,
So it's not one person that got
separate from
separated from two people.
no.
It's all three got separated from each other.
Yeah, that's where this story is going. So person number two, we say, okay, we passed person number one, 2 kilometers back towards the trailhead. If you keep going this way, we told him to wait at your vehicle. That's where he's headed. You'll find him there. He's like, oh, okay, thanks. He said, but there's still one more guy. I'm like, okay, if we see him, we'll let him know. Like at this point, I'm like, I don't know what else I'm gonna do here. There's no cell reception. We're way out in the
You
boonies.
become the search and rescue monkey.
Yeah, I kind of was the SAR monkey, exactly. So then we keep rolling, and we come across the third guy. So this is funny. The way we come across the third guy, we're about another 1 or 2 kilometers, maybe a kilometer and a half down the trail. Like these guys were really separated.
Up to 5 kilometers.
Yeah, between the first guy and the last guy. Yeah. So we come across the last guy, and um, we actually found him because we're riding our bikes, and I could hear something as we're riding the bikes. I thought, that's bear bells. I hear bear bells. So we slow down, and yeah, I can hear them. So we kind of stop the bikes and get over closer to the edge. And we're on the side of a mountain, this trail we're on. So the mountain comes down, there's the level road bit, and then it sort of goes down further down into the river about, I don't know, 100, 200 meters below us. Well, this guy comes up over the edge onto the road with his bear bell on his walking stick. So at least he had that going for him. And he did not seem concerned in the slightest that he had no idea where his friends were. So we're asking him, are you part of the group of the other two hikers? He said, yeah. And then he starts telling us about how he's looking for mushrooms. Like, I think you might have found them, dude. So,
Oh, the magic ones.
yeah. So it was crazy. It was crazy. So, anyways, this guy, we eventually convince him that you should just get on the trail and go find your friends. They're 5 kilometers back that way where your truck is. Oh, so once that guy's gone, we're like, okay, that was three. That was three. All right, good. We don't have to worry about these people anymore. We can now do our geocaching adventure. It was it was quite the story, man. So
Wow.
the
How
last
far on the trail did you end up riding?
we rode just over 10 kilometers. So that was about the halfway point of our ride when we had found the last hiker. So if there's something we can teach people out of this moment, don't get separated by over a kilometer. Like stick together. Oh, people.
Were they all looking for mushrooms? And
I
anyway,
don't
it's
know.
tough to say, but that's not a good situation to be in.
No,
If you're going to wander off, say looking for mushrooms, or I'll find this cache, you find that cache.
right.
Um, have some FRS radios.
Yeah, if you
You know
know
the
you're gonna split up, like
Yeah,
have something or have take a waypoint and say, we are all meeting back at this waypoint in 30 minutes or 1 hour, whatever it is, but have a plan. Have a plan, keep in communication, and honestly, just don't separate in the first place. But
now I am shocked that the whistle didn't carry far enough. I would think it would carry over a couple of kilometers.
well, the thing is the geology and geography of where we
Oh.
were, because the trail went around the mountain. So the
Hmm.
first guy was almost all the way back around to the front side of the mountain where the highway is.
He'll
Being
be coming around the mountain.
yeah, well, and the other two were coming around the mountain when they came. Um, but those two guys were more around the backside of the mountain. So he was blowing the whistle, but he was blowing the whistle out into the valley, and the sound really wasn't carrying back.
Okay. In the chat, we have, well, if they're really good mushrooms, then no amount of planning will help.
Yeah, no kidding. Oh my goodness. So, anyways, that's my story.
Wow.
But we found an awesome earth cache. I actually created or am in the process of creating a new earth cache up there on some of the other geology we found. So that'll be earth cache number 9 for us when that gets published. And we dropped 2 traditionals up there that are really neat locations. Uh,
Nice.
one's at an old abandoned snow shed, um, rail snow shed, if you know what I'm talking about. It's like a half tunnel, and the other is actually at an old tunnel. So neat spot.
Now, I'm still thinking about your story here
Okay.
of the 3 hikers. When you got back to your car, were they all together or did they already leave?
Their vehicle had left by the time we
Okay.
got back to our car, so we
Okay.
knew that they had connected up. And
Well, at least the one with the keys did.
yeah, right. Which we know wasn't the first guy. We know the first guy didn't have the keys. I'm wondering if the second guy is the guy with the keys, and the third guy was the guy who was high
Eating
on
mushrooms.
mushrooms. Yeah. Who was the third guy was bear food.
Yeah.
And yeah, so
Wow. That
it was crazy. It was a very memorable adventure. Let me put it that way.
I have to ask, was there anybody nearby on a riding lawnmower giving directions?
By the time we left, there were people on quads coming up the trail.
That's
But
very similar to a riding lawnmower
close. It's
in all
close.
aspects. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, so there's my story. Thank you for your patience, Chris, and listeners for letting me tell my long-winded story about my Earth Cache adventure. But I thought
That's
it was kind of a neat one.
that's a great story. I mean, it's a great story nonetheless, but it also talks about earth caches. We've got one more question that I don't want to get to tonight.
Okay.
This one comes from Green Words.
Ooh, I know her.
Yes, and she asked, "Do you have a list of steps that you always follow when creating an earth cache, or is each one different? Or do you have anything in rules set in Jello that maybe you stick against the wall and
Well, I have a
work from there?
stapler in Jello, but that's a different story.
I've nailed Jello to my screen before.
All right. And if anybody gets the stapler and Jello reference, let me know. Shout me out a tweet. Let me know that you got the stapler. In fact, send me a picture of the stapler and the Jello on
Oh, there
Twitter.
you go.
Let me know. Anyways, to answer Greenwood's actual question, which has nothing to do with Jello or staplers, yes, I do have a bit of a system that I follow. I would break it down into 5 steps for every earth cache that I create. And this is something that I've learned over time and kind of honed this system as I go forward. It starts with step 1, which is spot, observe, take lots of photos, take lots of waypoints. Don't just take one waypoint. Don't just take one picture. So you'll see usually an earth cache happens because you either know of, are told of, or happen to observe yourself something interesting. You probably don't know what it is. Maybe you do, but you might not know exactly what it is. But it just looks interesting. Like, this is interesting. This is fascinating. I want to learn more about this. So make your own observations while you're there. Take some notes. You can video record your own notes, which is what I often do. Is I just use the phone and video record myself looking at things and speak to myself as if I'm vlogging, and then that way I am able to capture what's going on in my head as well as what I'm seeing and describing and feeling, etc. So take your observations, take tons of photos, and like I said, take multiple waypoints, not just because you're not sure about the accuracy, but there might be other things that you want people to do in that area, and it'll be handy later to know, oh yeah, that this waterfall was here at the main waypoint, but more interesting than the waterfall, when I went around to the side of it, I found a fossil bed. Oh yeah, okay, well we
And a
can,
glacial erratic.
yeah, right. So
A waterfall and a glacial erratic at the same
that'll
time.
get published. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyways, look around, expand your search, and take lots of waypoints and make lots of notes. So that's step 1. So that's what you do when you're in the field when it's happening. Step 2 is this used to be later in my process. I've now bumped this right up to step number 2, which is permission. Because if you can't get landowner permission, you're not going to be able to publish the earth cache, and you're going to waste any more effort on any of the other steps. So step number 2 is figure out what you're going to need to do for permission. Do you even need permission? Now, of course, the question that you're going to get when you go to submit an earth cache for review, you're always going to be asked for landowner permission. Just know that it is always going to be asked. What you can do is preclude that question if you happen to know it is a public access area, and it's a super low impact or zero impact public access area. Then you can find a way to state that in a way that you can say permission not required because. So you can find a way to deal with that, but you need to be sure of your facts. So find out if you need permission. If so, find out from whom. Try and make that initial contact and get that process going. That'll speed things up for you. If you've got step 1 and step 2 dealt with, step 3 is research, of course. Now, this is the part that's probably the most work. Well, sometimes permission is the most work, but go online. If you have books on geology, or you have friends with books on geology, or you know where the library is, and you have a rough idea about the geology of the area, what it is that in particular that you're trying to, what the topic of geology is that you're trying to look up. Look at other earth caches for similar things. See what those people have written. So do your research, and then step 4 is put your content together. The way I do mine is I actually use Google Docs, and I write it out as if I was writing the cache page. So I'll insert images. I will write the text out and edit it, move the things around until I like the way it looks and flows. So I'll basically create the earth cache offline in a Google Doc and get everything ready for that. And then the final step 5 for me, is create and then submit. So there you go. There's my 5-step earth cache process. Trademark Land Monkey.
So spot, permission, research, content, create.
There you go.
Yeah. Spurk.
Spurkic. I like it. That's the acronym. Spurkic.
Yeah. Spurkic. If you ever question, how do I do an earth cache? You think Spurkic.
Spurkic.
Just Spurkic. We could make that a new verb, right? Like Google.
I Spurkic it.
Yeah.
That just rolls off the tongue.
You might have to. Maybe we use S for submit. Then it becomes Spurks.
Spurks. I like it.
A little easier.
Or Sparks.
Right? And research is RE. It's Spurks.
I'm going to play with this a bit, folks. We'll get a better acronym.
Okay.
That's the process. So before we roll out of this, and I know we're getting to the end of the episode here, Chris, there was a question from Brylang that I was going to bring in here, which was, how many earth caches must a man find before you can call him a man?
Mm,
Was
mhm.
the way he worded the question. Now, I don't know if he's getting at how many earth caches should you find before you create your own? If that's what he's getting at with his question.
There's a song in there.
Oh, I know where he's going
Oh,
with it.
okay.
I'm just ignoring. I'm trying not to give him that attention. I'm actually trying to turn it into a real question. It's
You know,
Brylang.
I would say
Give me
100.
attention. 100? You really
Yeah.
think you'd
Yeah,
find
like, just like regular cash. No, that's I did mine when I was in the 30s, so but I had a lot of help. Uh, Ojoy has put on an earth caching workshop here to help you, you know, get ideas and laid out very similar steps to what you have done here, Land Monkey.
okay.
And to, and then she would work with you one on one. What do you think of that? Well, what if you say it this way, or what if you go with this angle?
Nice.
Um, so ask for help. Look for other earth caches that are similar. In fact, Keepers of the Cache Flow says, "Does anyone know of any earth caches dealing with erosion? I haven't run into one, and I have an idea."
100.
What?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but I have done,
Mhm.
if not hundreds, at least dozens of earth caches dealing with erosion. So there's plenty out there. The tricky bit is how do you find an earth cache on a particular topic, right? I mean,
Mhm.
one way is to actually Google it because
Google.
Google does index.
Yeah, use site:geocaching.com and search for earth cache and erosion, and I bet you'll come up with something.
You'll come up with some. That'll work. So there you go. Good advice, Chris.
Yep. Wet Coaster asks a very good question, and in fact, Wet Coaster, I apologize. I know you emailed this in to uh, come on, GeoGearHeads at cachemaniacs.com. That what happened to Earth Cache Academy?
Oh,
Earthcacheacademy.org
yeah.
doesn't take you anywhere anymore.
It doesn't. So earthcacheacademy.org, if people have not heard of it, was amazing. It was a wonderful effort that was put together by the Geological Society of America. That was an online course that you could take for, it was a nominal fee. It was what was it, like $5-10 US?
Something. I mean, now I know you could take the first course
The
or
first
first
one was free.
section. First one was free, and that's how they get you hooked every time. The first one is always free.
But but th but the first one was on geological time, which is a lot of earth caches are on geological
Yes,
time. So
exactly.
it was a good one. And then there was one on fossils, and there was one on volcanism, and it was a really great series. And I did complete them. I thought they were fantastic. They they're gone. They ran out of funding. They could not
Mhm.
get enough funding support to keep the site up and going, folks. That is the sad truth behind it. So if you really, really liked Earth Cache Academy, I say contact the GSA, go to their website, contact them, and ask them what can be done to bring Earth Cache Academy back. If enough people ask, they will they will look into it, which means that either they'll put out a call for funding and then we can donate some money to help put it together, or they will find funding from somewhere else. I don't know. But if we don't ask them, they don't know that we need it or want it.
Exactly.
So I would
Exactly.
say if you liked Earth Cache Academy, or if you like the idea of Earth Cache Academy, contact the GSA, Geological Society of America, and ask them, "Hey, what happened to Earth Cache Academy? I'd really love to have something like that," and see what happens.
And of course, if you're in the US, go ahead and contact your senator and congressman and let them know they need to fund the Geological Society of America to the full extent so we can get Earth Cache Academy back.
There you go. So yes, it is very sad that we lost Earth Cache Academy, but like many other things in life, if there isn't enough funding, if there's not enough people supporting it, that's what happens.
Well, Land Monkey, thank you so much for joining us and talking about earth caches and hiker safety.
Yeah.
That story's still going through my head.
Well, fortunately, we've got another couple hours to talk about that later tonight. So,
That's right. And in case you didn't know, what Land Monkey's referring to is another podcast that we do together called Caching in the Northwest. It's a fun podcast. We talk about all sorts of topics. So, but what we want you to remember is we've got upcoming topics right here on GeoGearHeads. Next week, we are talking about hosting events with Washington's own Princess Trouble. Yes, we have the Princess of Trouble. I'm sure there might be a queen out there, but we at least have the princess right here. November 8th is another randomized show. So if you submit something for this show, you might be able to win a trackable. That's GeoGearHeads at cacheamaniacs.com, but use the subject GGH 358, randomize feedback. GGH 358, randomize feedback for the subject. And make sure you have that to us by November 6th. Time's running out on that one, folks.
Ooh, trackable contest. We love trackable contests.
Oh, yes, this will be one of the, I think it's one of the GeoGearhead trackables, but it may, Daryl may have something else up his sleeve.
Nice. Hey, do you guys have a guest for that one? Is that because sometimes you guys have guests on?
We sometimes do. I don't know if we do.
Oh, okay. Well, I was just curious if you did, because it's always nice to know who the guest is going to be.
I don't see that there's a guest on that one yet, but you never know.
Never know.
Sometimes we're working on it up to the last minute with guests.
Yeah, sometimes that happens.
But November 15th, we have a guest, and that's already locked in.
Awesome.
Because the guest is the very reliable Limax. And that's going to be episode 359. Are you ready? GPSR or GPS receiver versus smartphone number 2.
Number 2.
It's a smackdown, seeing which one is better.
So is Limax going to be debating against somebody else, or is Limax just taking the whole topic and running with it? Because he can. I mean, that dude knows everything about GPS.
He really does. I don't know. I think we should do more of a smackdown, but no, it will be a good discussion. Pros and cons, because GPSRs are changing.
Yes.
And so are smartphone apps.
And that'll be a really interesting episode. I'm looking forward to listening to that one. It's funny because it reminds me, I was just talking to Scott last night, and we were reminiscing about debating GPSRs versus smartphones on this very podcast. And I guess that would have been GPSR versus smartphone 1.
Number 1.
There you go.
And that was quite the arm wrestling championship we had going there.
Oh, that was fun. I love arguing with Scott about anything. All right. Well, folks, thanks for taking the time to be here, and check the Cacheamaniacs website at cacheamaniacs.com for more on the GeoGearHeads, including show notes for this and all our episodes. We love hearing from our listeners, so leave us feedback by emailing geogearheads at cacheamaniacs.com or through the social medias. Your support helps to keep Cacheamaniacs shows coming. Please consider becoming a patron through the link on our website to support the Cacheamaniacs shows. GeoGearHeads is produced by Chris Umfenauer and Daryl Wattenberg. This show is copyright 2018 by Daryl Wattenberg, all rights reserved.